Hello everyone, it's our usual Friday chat about boxer gloves, how they're made and different things and comparisons and what have you. This week I'm going to talk about big brand name gloves that you see everywhere on amateur competitions and why they're made this way and why they're crap, basically, because to offset the costs of other things, as in they're all for amateur competition as well as the pros now, as you know. This is the approval stamp of IEBA or the IBA. These go through, along with the Headguards, a testing procedure. Now, what happens is, we did it years ago, as you can see. This was our version. It has the stamp on. This is the way they used to do it. You would go and you'd spend £2,500, send these to Munich University. They'd be tested to destruction in several ways. If they passed as safe, you got a certificate or you got word to say that they were approved and passed, and you went on a list along with your Headguards. And then you had to buy these little iron-on stamps to say they were approved, and these cost, I think it was about $1 each. So on a pair of gloves you had to have two, so $2 on every pair of gloves you sold or produced, and one on a Headguard. Now, obviously, things have changed a little bit since way back then, and they tried to get different ways of getting money out of manufacturers, etc. And it changed over to what it basically is now, where you send it away for the test. I think it goes to a Russian place now, because the IBA is run by Russia, as we know. They charge you X amount for the testing as usual, but instead of this iron-on stamp, it changed to a holographic sticker, but they started to peel off or come undone. So if you pass, they would give you a small screen printing thing and you would put this screen on at your factory as they were made. Now, the way Russian sport is run, it's very corrupt. Everybody wants a little piece of extra money to allow you to get through, etc. And the reason we stopped doing it was people were asking things like, well, slip me a small envelope of cash and we'll make sure your gloves are used in the European Championships, but you have to give us the money and all the equipment for free. So basically it was advertising. Well, we get that, we do it even today. We'll give promoters enough of our pro gloves to use on their television shows, which is free advertising, and people get to use decent gloves. So with all these people asking us for backhanders, and it wasn't like give us 50 quid, it was like give me $50,000 and we'll ensure your gloves are used in the European Championships, Worlds, Olympics, blah blah blah. And then these, on top of that, they wanted what was called a licensing fee. Now the licensing fee, so you've got your gloves, cost about 25 quid to be made. If you're really diligent and you want a safe glove like we did, you find the best padding. So there's your 25 quid for your glove. Then your £2.5 grand testing fee. Then you've got to pay for your stamps, so you're going to buy them in the hundreds anyway. And then you wanted a licensing fee on top to say that you had passed the IBA or IEBA and you were on the list. Now that licensing fee started off at about £20,000. Now that was just a one-off payment originally, and then it went to every year. So you had to pay £20,000 a year. At the minute, I believe it's somewhere in the region of £50,000 to £70,000, or dollars, sorry, US dollars, every year to be licensed doing this product. Somebody might tell me I'm wrong, but it's somewhere about, I don't know, because I don't do it anymore, because it wasn't going back into boxing, it was going into other people's back pocket, which I'm very much against. Now, obviously, if you break all that down, say you sell or you probably give away more than you sell in this kind of equipment. to the tournaments. So say you're doing 1,000 pairs of gloves a year, so you're already at £2,500 for the testing, £50,000 for your licensing fee. So them gloves aren't standing in you at £25 to make anymore. You've got to offset them costs, and that's why we used to sell these at 50 quid years ago, so clubs could afford them and people could afford them. A lot of them, like the Sting, these retail about £110 now, because they're offsetting that cost. Another way of offsetting that cost is you use cheaper ingredients when you're making the glove. So obviously the leather quality is not the same as what we used to use, and the foam inners. Now, as you can see, the foam inners on these gloves are very thick, and they like the target area, the knuckle area, to be really thick and protective. Now, if you look at that, that is a medium to hard impact area. Now they've been doing them as long as, they came in just after we did. Now if you look at the impact area on ours, it's just as thick, I would say, but it's a good medium impact. You're never going to get it right through to the knuckle, which is the safe end of it. So we paid a premium price for a better foam in that. Again, as you can see with the Sting ones, they're a bit softer than them, but not at the level of those. So now here's the explanation. Now, as you know, with our gloves, all our gloves, modern day ones, they're all multi-layers of foam. I've showed you the layers before and how it works. That's the best way to make a glove. The Mexican way is natural latex, which is good. It's a little bit heavy for me, so you end up with thinner layers, and that's why they say Mexican gloves are a puncher's glove, because they're thin. But it's a good shock absorber, natural latex. You just have to know your gloves. Now, the cheapest way to make this kind of glove is what's called injected moulded foam. I've spoke about this before. A lot of the cheaper companies make their cheap end gloves this way. It's where they have a hot mould, a metal mould, shaped like this. If you can imagine, this is the mould. They pour liquid foam, hot liquid foam into the mould, and when it cools it comes out like a big rubber glove shape, and that's the inner of the glove. Now that is the cheapest form of foam for a boxing glove. So they're saving money by using the cheapest version of foam, cheapest leather, so they're bringing the costs right back down again to offset all these thousands and thousands of pounds they pay in licensing and testing with the IBA. Now, anybody who's boxed amateur and used these kind of gloves will know when they're brand new, they're alright, do you know what I mean? They're okay, they're nicely, fairly well balanced gloves. They're not nice and smooth, they're okay, in my opinion, for adults, and I'll go into that shortly. Now, after they've been used a couple of times in a couple of shows, or even if you're only using them as a training glove, you'll notice you start getting a bit floppy around the wrist, so you're lacking wrist support. And if you look closely, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll see all these little lumps come up in them. Now, those little lumps are pieces of foam breaking away, and I'm going to show you how that happens now. So, right, now this glove has only been used on club shows, so they don't get used that often. It's not been a bag glove. These have been used on, say, .50 contests, 50 3-minute contests. Or, no, with 1.5 minute rounds to 2 minute rounds, so not an awful lot. Not what you'd think it would be like. Now if we cut through, as you can see, there's not it's just one piece. Just one piece of, I'll cut the whole thing out so you can see. I'll try and cut it out. Now with these, they don't have a good lining in them. So what goes toward the perishing of the foam, obviously sweat is alkaline and is the opposite of acid. So as you can see, those little blisters are the foam breaking down, and you can see where it's come out of them. You can see all the bits. I'm going to get covered in this now, but the sweat tends to destroy the foam, and as you can see, the inside, the knuckle part has totally gone. Now when you think they get used 2 or 3 times a year, and then being a 12 ounce, they're for boxers over 67 kilo ish, so they don't get used as much as the 10s, because the kids will use the 10s. 80% of amateur boxers are under 16, 17. So I'll explain that again in it shortly. So these 12 ounce gloves have not been used as much as the 10s would be in a club show. So they've been used, I would say, probably 20 to 30 contests of 3 minutes, 3 2-minute rounds. So you work that out, it's not an awful lot. And they're destroyed. As you can see, we've got all them bits coming out, and it's all over the place. And from the inside, where the sweat's soaked in, it's destroyed the most vital area, basically. So that's what cheap moulded foam, that's what happens to cheap moulded foam gloves. Now these are cheap moulded foam gloves. Actually, these retail at £65. So there you've got 12 ounce, and you compare that, that's PU as well, that. So there's another downside. Fully grade 1 leather 12 ounce glove is made of multi foam. You can see the difference when you you can see the difference in the thickness around the knuckle. That's the easiest way to tell it's a one piece injected moulded foam. Stay away. So there you have it. Stay away from this kind of glove. You have to have it for competition gloves, because that's how the manufacturers and the companies offset the cost of paying all the bribes, licensing fees, testing fees. They have to recoup the money somehow, like any other business, which is fair enough. But to offset the cost, they will use the cheapest way of making a glove. And that's what happens with those. Now I'll go into some other part of it. Now, as I said to you before, these apart from this pair I've just cut up, obviously these are all brand new gloves. They've never been boxed in. They've never had any punishment at all. These are off the shelf, so they're brand new. Now, obviously, as you break a glove in, it's going to soften up a touch. These, not much, because they're not used every day in the gym. These would probably be used every day in the gym, and the same mould as them. Now, when a boxer is 10 years old, they can do skills bouts. They start off with the skills bouts. They will wear these gloves, 10 ounce. Now, everybody from the age of 10 to the 40th year in amateur boxing, if they're under 67 kilo, will wear the same 10 ounce glove. So you can be 10 years old having your first skills contest where there's no winner, etc. It's what it says it is, to show your skills, that you're competent enough to be in the ring, and you will wear these gloves. Now, at the end of the night, obviously, top of the bill on these amateurs club shows, you'll get the senior boxers who are over 18, basically grown men, women, and they'll wear exactly the same glove if they're under 67 kilo. So one thing that annoys me that way is, you've got a 10-year-old kid, little hands, you can just about get his hand wraps on, do what he does. He'll be given his competition glove. Now, when you're thinking your average 10-year-old probably weighs 32 kilos or something like that, the glove will be on. He's got them little dainty hands. Every time he goes out, he's been taught, and he should be, to pull a fist. Now, the thickness of that glove is making my hands ache now. So if you can imagine that kid for 1.5 minutes, or a minute in the skills bouts, 1.5 when he actually competes at 11, they've got to hold that tight fist and punch with a closed fist as tight as they can. They can't do it. They're virtually impossible to open. Now, when you think, I've got big hands, I'm a strong fella, I'm struggling to open that glove. In fact, it's uncomfortable to try and do that, it's hurting my fingers. So you can't block shots the way you're taught. You can't make a good fist. So all them kids, small kids, are punching with an adult glove that probably comes just shy of the elbow because of the size of them. And they're punching with an open fist because they can't do that. I mean, I would imagine most adults, if they're a newish pair of gloves, obviously when they've been used a couple of times, they're not going to be as stiff, which I'll demonstrate now. So using these cheap gloves is not good for young boxers. As we've seen, these are used. They've had a year of using these, so they're a little bit better, but like I say, I'm a 15 stone adult, and they're only just now, when they're ready for the bin, I can open that mainly because of that, because it's split inside. So I would imagine again a 10, 12, 13-year-old kid trying to punch his way through his contest, he's going to be hitting with an open hand, word of knowledge. The people who think of these things up, these officials in boxing, 99 times out of 100 have never boxed. In fact, the guy who's in charge of England boxing, the chief executive or whatever they call him, or the chairman or wherever he is, he's come from cycling. So he's never boxed from the age of 10, trying to put a pair of man's gloves on that he can't close a total fit. My hand's still aching from trying to do that with them, you know. How do they expect kids to do that? It's unbelievable. They should. Now this is a brand new 12 ounce. I know it's ours and you think, oh, you're just bigging up your brand and all that, like. But you can make a good fist. The grip bar's in the correct place. The finger bar is in the correct place. So you can hold that every time you're going to throw a punch. You can hold that, a tight fist in that for 3 minutes if you have to. Same with the Pro Gear. Obviously the Pro Gear is a lot softer, as we know. You've got to put those on. They're a soft glove. We know you can. And when you think they're only 3 minutes holding a tight fist, you're 30 minutes holding a tight fist with a Pro glove on. So it needs to have that suppleness. So that's the other thing I was going to tell you about, having that huge thick piece of foam. It's detrimental to teaching young kids how to throw punches correctly. Any experienced coach will tell you, punching with your hands open or not into a tight fist causes broken bones. And if you're 12, 13 years old, you're breaking your hand in an amateur contest, do you think your parents are going to think twice about letting you go back into it? It's not good, is it? So all these people who advocate this kind of glove for amateur boxing have never actually used them, or very rarely. They don't know. I'll bet you, if I sat them people down in a row there, they've never even thought about that aspect of a boxing glove. where the junior boxer cannot make a full fist, so therefore they're punching incorrectly with open hands all the way through. So not only is it a cheap, nasty way of making gloves, it's not safe either, and the glove is safety equipment for boxing. It's safe so it doesn't damage your opponent's face in amateur boxing, and it's supposed to be safe so you don't damage your hands. So I know I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there explaining how they're made and why they're crap, basically, and the way they should be made. When I was a young kid in the 70s, when I first got into the boxing, we used similar gloves to the pro gloves. We didn't use Headguards. Even at the age of 11, 10, 11, whatever we started at in them days, we never wore a Headguard. And I boxed and trained in some of the top gyms in the country at the time. I don't even remember seeing a Headguard when we were sparring. And if I remember, I'm sure, I mean I'm going back a long time, I'm sure the only gloves we had for sparring would be the same gloves like the ones I showed you last week, those fibre-filled gloves, or horsehair. Those same gloves we used in competition, we used in sparring in the gym. We never had our own gloves. We might have our own bag mitt, you know, but we never had our own sparring gloves, we never had our own headgear. The club supplied everything apart from your boots and your gum shield. And to be fair, in them days, every gym was like packed. A lot of them had a waiting list. You had to wait. If you wanted to box for a certain club or your local club, you had to wait until somebody left or somebody finished and there was a space for you to come in, because it was so popular back in them days. I've said many times before, in this area where I am now in Merseyside, if you managed to be the Merseyside and Cheshire champion, or West Lancs and Cheshire as it was called back then, there was a good chance you'd be getting to the national final, because this was such a tough division to get out of. It was really hard. It's not like it is today. It's died off quite a bit, because obviously there was no computers. You either played football, rugby, or you were a boxer, or you didn't play sports. That was it years ago. I mean, I would say that was it until the turn of the century. Obviously we never had computer games and stuff like that, but I think that's why we've declined a little bit. I think the top amateurs not being on the telly all the time like it used to be. The schools and the ABA finals were always on the telly back then. No Headguards meant you could see the person, like the top pro fella, you knew who they were. And I think when it transitioned to them wearing Headguards, it sort of dropped in popularity, because there was like some nondescript person in a vest and a Headguard and gloves, and the televisions seemed to start losing interest as well. A bit like today, where it used to always be on BBC and ITV, and then it went over to Sky Sports. Now it's gone even another step further, where you have to go on pay-per-view or pay to live stream a show. So things like that have helped to decline it a little bit. It's still, I mean, you can go into a gym today, pick a gym anywhere in the country, and you probably find 20 to 30 kids minimum training away. So it's not all bad, and it's not all woe. I think in England there's just shy of 1,000 registered amateur boxing clubs. So it's still popular. It's just, like all those old timers say, it was harder back in my day. In any walk of life, they always say that, don't they? So, but I do think, obviously, it was a good idea to take the Headguards away from the senior boy boxers, or senior male boxers. I like the idea of the junior boxers getting it. If I'd have been a junior boxer in my day wearing a Headguard, we wouldn't have lost so many kids through lack of confidence. I think it gives you confidence and a little bit of safety, and parents like to see the safety side of it, because I see parents coming into the shop and the kid wants to box and the mum's like, oh, I don't want my son to get bashed up, and I have to explain to them, You've seen professional boxing on television, which is entertainment. It's more like gladiators. Amateur boxing, what all the kids start out doing and stick at, is more about fast-paced skill, and it's safe with the with the big thick gloves and the approved safety head guards. So I would think it's a good idea to keep head guards on the junior and the schoolboy boxers, but at least we're getting to know now those top amateurs who are now starting to get back on television a little bit with the ABA finals and the Olympics. You get the faces and the names like we used to. I mean, when I was a kid, we had some of the top amateurs that I used to watch in the Olympics, like, you know, Alan Minter. I remember him boxing in the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics, and you knew his face. So when he turned professional, he ended up winning British and World Championships on BBC. He was the same fresh-faced person that you'd watched years earlier winning the ABAs on BBC One. So, but like I say, again, in them days, the gloves were more like what we use now in the pro game. Since I think the early 1990s, when we went through this approved thing, they started out with, they had to be blue in the blue corner, red in the red corner, then they had to have the white target area. In the 2000s that was dropped, so you get it blue or red, and if you're in the red corner you wear red gloves and a red head guard. If you're in the blue, reps and always have that green vest, so you know who they are with the gold shorts and the green vest. The Solly in Liverpool, they're all in black, you know who they are. But traditionally that's the way it used to always be. They had a sash to decide. They both might wear blue gloves, and you know, but now everything's all approved and all done that way. There you go. Now you know what I first started out telling you about, the poor quality gloves to offset the cost, because of the cost these people have to pay organisations such as IBA or AIBA, which we all know it's corrupt. And why it's corrupt, my opinion is the Russian way of life, and some, not just Russians, I'm not being racist or anything like that. The Russian way is, corruption's a normal thing. It's an everyday thing in some way or other. Same with other countries are the same. Even in England, you get money corrupts people. Money and power corrupt people. I'll rephrase that one. And they were stopped being allowed to run boxing in the Olympics because it worked out in a roundabout way. People were buying, or countries were buying medals from them. Hence we got those crazy decisions. It's never going to stop that. Now we've got a new governing body taking over called World Boxing. They're saying they're going to stamp out the corruption. They're starting to take over everything. They've been working with the Olympic Committee to get it all kept in the Olympic Games, which boxing should be. It's one of the original sports in the Olympics, and it's an amateur boxer's pinnacle to reach that before they turn pro. Let's hope they can do it. I do know, I've been speaking to World Boxing, they are going through the same thing with the testing and the approval, and we're arguing about the licensing fee, because my idea is, if we can make good gloves safe and usable for amateur boxers. Amateur boxing is not a rich man's sport. It is what it is. It's amateur. It's a hobby, and it's generally from the council estate kids who excel at amateur boxing. They can't afford to pay £110, £120 for a pair of gloves. So I've asked World Boxing if they drop the licensing fee, keep it all reasonable. I don't mind paying for the testing, which is fair enough. Pay for the testing, so you know the testing is done properly and the equipment passes. So we don't have to offset the cost and sell things at £120 odd. We can go back to the old way where you've got a good glove that passes the test and you can sell it at a reasonable price where people can afford. We're not having to offset and get that cost back. So hopefully World Boxing will listen to us, not think it's an avenue for them to get more money in, and it's about the kids and the young boxers. That's what boxing's about. So that's why I sell everything at low prices for premium quality stuff. It's for young kids, get them off the streets, all this knife crime stuff. It's the same in every country. You want to get kids interested in being fit, eating right, learning how to respect people and how to defend themselves. Not just another way to cream money and put it in somebody's back pocket. Oh well, you've got this one, bit of a soapbox ending to that one. So as usual, I forgot to tell you to like, subscribe. We know at least 80% of people who watch this don't press that thumbs up. Press it for us, please. Just press that thumb. It takes nothing. Press that thumbs up and subscribe. Doesn't mean you have to watch us every week, and you probably do anyway, but only 20% of people who watch me every week subscribe. So please do that for us, and then that ensures I can come and show you how how crappy gloves are made, how good gloves are made, and why things cost what they do. Right, see you next week.